and welcome to Sheffield Live. You are watching African Voices, and my name is Baillor Jalloh. And next to me is Enoch Karimba, who is our political commentator tonight. And on tonight's show, we are focusing on Egypt after the sudden death of its former leader, Mohamed Morsi, who was ousted by the current regime of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. But before we start, it's a pleasure for me to introduce our guest tonight, who is an Egyptian resident here in Sheffield, Alla Abdelaal.
Yes.
An Egyptian. So welcome, Alla.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to the show. As I mentioned, we are talking about Egypt tonight after the sudden death of Mohamed Morsi this week. For those who might not know who Mohamed Morsi was the first democratically elected president of Egypt after the fall of Hosni Mubarak back in 2011 when the Arab Spring was in full swing. So Mohamed Morsi became the first democratically elected leader by representing the Muslim Brotherhood, and he won by 51.7%. But his rule was cut short after he was overthrown in less than a year when he was in power. So he was overthrown by al-Sisi after several protests during his reign, but then his reign was cut short. So since then, he has been in prison for charges relating to espionage, charges of killing protesters, and other similar charges. But today, we will be discussing Mohamed Morsi, who many Egyptians regards as their first democratically elected leader, and also depending on which of the angle you take it from, debatable or not. But let's start with Alla. So first of all, your reaction to his death.
It's shocking. Mohamed Morsi, as well known, is a well-healthy person and was doing well in the past, and we haven't expected whatsoever, because he's our president we're expecting so far, and his death was like is shocking for all Muslims who are supporting the freedom of this world at the moment so far. So everyone who looks like it's unbelievable what's going on in Egypt, and what we heard. As for myself, I didn't expect this to happen at all. So it was like a nightmare for most of Egyptian people in the country and outside of the country. So plus other people has been arrested in the prison. There are most of like thousands of people has been arrested after the coup has been done in 2013, after being removal to Mohamed Morsi. It's actually is hard work for Egyptian people to be facing in the future so far.
I can see you are very emotional regarding to the way things have been unfolding over the years. As you mentioned at the beginning, prior to him being arrested, according to you, he was a healthy man. And since he has been arrested and being put in jail, he's been tried for various charges. But in terms of what has happened over the years, let's say if we rewind the clock back to 2011, when the Arab Spring started, when we saw the fall of Hosni Mubarak, whom many people regarded in Egypt as a dictator, and there was hope for the country. And when Hosni Mubarak fell and Mohamed Morsi came to power, there was hope for the country, and then all of a sudden, everything just went wrong. Where will you say the problem started for Morsi?
The problem started for Morsi as like it's become, because he's coming from a large organization like Muslim Brotherhood is a well-organized organization in Middle East, not just in Egypt. And it's been very supported because Muslim Brotherhood is a big society in Egypt and is supported by majority of Egyptian people. They were like very helpful for the majority of Egyptian people, like in supporting all charities and supporting poor people. And most of the Muslim Brotherhood members, all the highly educated people, and then very simplified to the society, and all the public was very happy or supportive to Morsi or any one of the Brotherhood, Muslim Brotherhood members could be in a power anywhere, because we are 100% sure if any one of these guys in the power, they are going to make a lot of progress, not just in Egypt itself. They're going to be like in the Middle East, even in Africa, all over the world. Egypt is going to be valued in terms of someone who's going to support the government or supporting the country from his deep heart without any corruptions going to be taking place.
Enoch, when the Arab Spring started, there was hope for many countries in the Arab world, including Egypt. And the way things unfolded in Egypt, many people were surprised to see the fall of Hosni Mubarak suddenly done by the people of Egypt with the help of the military. And when the military is a very powerful office in Egypt, they are a very powerful organization. But when Hosni Mubarak fell, when Morsi came to power, there was hope for the country. So where will you say, or how will you, what's your reaction to the way things have unfolded in the country?
Thank you for having me. I think it's very confusing at large, because when the Arab Spring came in place, it only didn't happen in Egypt, happened in Tunisia, Algeria, some of these North African countries, and even in
Libya as well, yeah.
The Middle East as well. Some of there's sort of like a spill factor about these Arab Springs, and in particular for Egypt, I think it was a pattern of events. So after Hosni Mubarak was ousted, Egyptian people thought, we're having a change of government. This man has been in power for years and years. So for them to rise up and have this man out of office, and to have the Muslim Brotherhood and Morsi in power, that kind of like
challenge,
it brought some hope, but that hope was to be short-lived, because only lasted a year.
Yeah.
So for it to last a year, there will be some questions to be asked. What went wrong? But as you mentioned, the Brotherhood had good intentions, but those good intentions were short-lived. So anyone could question, how do we know that they would have lasted, more than a year?
Longer,
so
yeah.
Where did Mohamed Morsi go wrong? Was it Mohamed Morsi? Was it any external factors? So there's questions to be asked around there.
We'll come into that for a minute, but let's talk about his death here for a minute.
Yeah.
He was on trial for espionage, according to what has been said, for being in contact with the Palestinian group Hamas. And on Monday, when he appeared in court, he asked to speak to the jury. He requested an independent trial, and also for his lawyers to have access to him. But then, according to reports, then he just fainted and passed away. In what has been said, do you believe that his death is that of natural, or there is something to it?
It's definitely not a natural death. Dr. Morsi, as well-educated man before he became president, elected as a president in Egypt, He was well-educated person. He was a lecturer in University of Cairo, and was doing well in a health-wise so far. To collapse in the court, he's not been gaining all the medical treatment what is expected, or has not been treated as, for example, a former president or something. If you've been seeing Mubarak, he was being ousted of the power, and he's been moving by helicopter in and out, and has been protected, and it's been freedom of speech to even to the public, to the courts. They got lots of respect in terms of like former president. When we come to them, Dr. Morsi, they treat him like a terrorist in their hands. They treat him like a thief. They treat him like a killer. This President Dr. Morsi has not even gained his wage, his salary, while he's been in power for a year. So they're trying to face him for so many charges. They cannot find anything, but it is all fake charges to put him in a prison. Even though they put him like in a complex glasses, you cannot even hear his voice. He can't talk to anyone. Every time he just try to represent himself. There is no any solicitor who can, any lawyer who can represented him. It's just everyone is refused, and everyone is scared even to come in the front to defend Dr. Morsi. So the gentleman has really hard work to face it in front of the court wise, and it's been everything is, I think, has been planned in advance.
When you say I've finished, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, before, I mean, you had an underlying medical issue, which was diabetes.
Yeah.
Obviously, someone diabetic, he might have some ongoing medical help or, health support, even the basics.
Supposed to be, yeah.
But in Morsi's situation, it happened that he didn't have any follow-up, to his medical problems. He never had any medication. Everything was always delayed and neglected in one way or the other.
He's been neglected for everything, yeah.
So in a way, there is obviously some beliefs out there that, he must have been left alone,
This has been individual. Individual presence, like.
And being diabetic, this would have been, kind of like escalated of his ill health.
Extra bit of care.
And then everything added up together, collapsing, what isn't hearing, that is something that, many people might
big question mark in this place,
why did he not collapse a week ago or 2 weeks before? So.
Yeah, well, we've seen human rights were campaigners and some other British MPs highlighting the fact that he was in military confinement for like 23 hours a day, and in terms of that, they were not happy with the way he was treated, so they believe that amounted to torture. So looking at that, but my wonder here is, or my question to both of you is, why has the international world been so silent on his case? Because apart from human rights campaigners, the international world has been very quiet, including the United Nations, the European Union, America, and others, and the African Union.
I wanted to take advantage of your window so far, who's going to face all this world, what's happening with the silence of this world, to be honest. I've just seen like is a big stigma on international world to face Mr. Morsi to collapse easy like this. And all them 6 years has been neglected from all the world. Nobody even face just have an energy or a power to say, treat this gentleman as a former president at least, to remove him from his power, power, which is only the first democratically elected for last 60 years in Egypt, the person who's been winning by 51%, 51.6 is I think percent.
51.7.
51.7%. Then others 98%. Is all dictators has been in power since revolution 1952 July, since Abdel Nasser been in power. Then followed by Sadat and followed by Mubarak, and then now Sisi in the power. This is 98, 99%, 100%. Cannot physically happen in any all over the world who's been democratically elected. War between Western countries for quite a long time. We never heard someone is winning by 51%. 100% or over here, and it's someone like Mr. Morsi has been neglected for all this world, and they are going to be ashamed of every single leaders has not been supporting someone like Mr. Morsi, has not been faced for any corruptions happening in Egypt, and they brought all a bad image on Egypt on his shoulders so far, unfortunately.
I think if you look at the media, the media outlets, if you look at the headline news, Morsi hasn't featured in the headline news. Some of these big media outlets, the Independent, the Guardian, like
Twitter and all
in the
social
UK,
media.
I'm talking about in the UK.
Yeah.
This has only been a small. Kind of like
image.
some small news reporting on the side. It's not been really big.
I'm not defending them, but they will argue it's an outside story.
But we have seen headline news that come from outside, not necessarily from the UK. So for Mohamed Morsi to have been neglected for many years, the international community, the UN, never batted an eyelid. For his situation for all those years. And they know he was democratically elected by the Egyptian people. Surely, democratic values, as understood by the West, should have been applied.
So will you say there is a double standard here?
I would say, to some extent, yes.
Double faces, you can say.
Double standards in the sense of protecting the values of freedom. For Mohamed Morsi, it was just the brotherhood and Mohamed Morsi that understood his issues. The whole world must have had an idea, but they didn't want to intervene. So are we asking ourselves whether we do have some external players out there that might have been, contributing to his suffering in jail?
But prior to the time he was ousted, when he was about a year in power, there were several protests. The country's economy was collapsing, and thousands of people came out. They were asking for his resignation, and he refused to resign. So the army's argument was that that's the reason why they stepped in. And he was one to say he had to fulfill what the protesters were wanting or their demand, else the military will step in. Will you say that's a mistake he made? That was a mistake he made?
In reality, the situation now so far, the economic in Egypt now is about 10 times worse, more than Morsi's time. They're trying to say, like, if you come in a dollar, Egyptian pounds valued, it was like, compared to the dollars, American dollars, it was like £6, $6. Sorry, £6 compared to the $1. Now is £18 compared to $1 now after 6 years.
So that's Egyptian pounds, yeah?
Egyptian pound compared to $1. So this is how much is now. This 3 times reduced the economics value or the Egyptian pound's value compared to the Egyptian to Morsi's time. Prices become like high sky in Egypt. The poverty is increased. We can say over 50%, 60% of the general public become under underlines of the poverty. And in general now, people is suffering for
Just try to cut it short because we're running out of time.
Yeah, the general in public now, Egyptian people very, very bad and suffering so far. If you can't even have your own say, if you can object about something happening in the power on the government, or lots of people lost their jobs, they haven't got the prices for the government trying to reduce all the support the beneficial was been getting from the government. There's no support whatsoever so far, and now people they cannot even refuse any gain from the government. You can say, oh, the new law comes up on the line. You can, if you come out in the street and object about this or protest about this, you are under prison and you'll be facing a lot of charges and you'll be arrested. God knows, maybe nobody see you again.
Well, we'll come to that in a minute after the break. So we'll just go for a short break for now. Don't go anywhere, and we'll be back soon.